Amelia Young never expected her life to change the day she walked into her sophomore marketing class, but that was when she met Jasper Anderson. He wasn't just another business major with a bright smile. There was something about the way he carried himself, with quiet confidence that drew her in. At first, she thought they came from two completely different worlds. Amelia was the daughter of a single mother who worked long hours to keep a roof over their heads, her family often struggling to stretch every dollar. Jasper, on the other hand, grew up surrounded by privilege. His father was a respected businessman, and Jasper was expected to one day inherit the family company. Despite the differences, their connection was undeniable. What began as late-night study sessions turned into stolen moments in the library, coffee dates, and eventually a love that defined their last 2 years of college. Amelia admired Jasper's ambition, while Jasper was captivated by her determination and heart. After graduation, they continued to build their lives together for another year, their dreams intertwining. For Amelia, he was more than love. He was proof that sometimes the most unexpected pairings could change everything. Jasper's father, Edward Anderson, had built a real estate empire from the ground up, starting with small property purchases before moving into home and business rehabilitation. Over the years, the company expanded into full-scale ground construction, making the Andersons a household name in the region. From the outside, Jasper seemed destined to step into his father's shoes. The Anderson family expected him to take on the mantle of leadership one day, continuing the legacy Edward had worked tirelessly to build. But Jasper's interests never aligned with business or construction. He enjoyed the wealth, the status, and the recognition that came with the family name, but he lacked the drive to be truly involved. While his father spent decades building and expanding the company with grit and discipline, Jasper dreamed of easier pursuits, lavish vacations, exclusive clubs, and the comfort of knowing his future was secure without much effort. Amelia admired Jasper's confidence, while Jasper was drawn to her determination and heart. After graduation, their bond only strengthened, and a year later, they married. It was shortly after their marriage that Amelia truly began to understand the inner workings of the Anderson legacy. At a family gathering, Edward, curious about the woman his son had chosen, asked Amelia a simple question about marketing. How would you target potential investors if you were in charge? Amelia, never one to back down from a challenge, answered with clarity and creativity. She spoke of modern branding strategies, community engagement, and the importance of appealing not only to investors' wallets, but also to their sense of vision and legacy. Edward listened intently, impressed by her insight and natural grasp of strategy, skills his own son had never displayed. Within weeks, Edward extended an invitation for Amelia to join the company. She started in a modest marketing role, but her impact was immediate. Her ideas brought a fresh perspective, helping the company connect with a new generation of investors and community leaders. Amelia quickly became a trusted advisor, working closely with Edward on several initiatives. Jasper, however, responded differently. Rather than feeling pride in his wife's accomplishments, he saw her growing role in the company as a reminder of his own lack of involvement. Entitled by birthright, Jasper accepted a position on the company's board, but had no real intention of contributing. He attended meetings, voiced opinions when it suited him, but ultimately preferred to let others handle the work. Where Edward and Amelia rolled up their sleeves to refine strategies and expand opportunities, Jasper remained content to enjoy the privileges of his name. For Amelia, it was a bittersweet reality. She loved Jasper deeply and believed in their marriage, but she couldn't ignore the stark contrast between father and son. Edward treated her with the respect of a partner, valuing her mind and her drive, while Jasper seemed to drift further from the responsibilities that came with his family legacy. Still, Amelia clung to hope. She believed in the man she had fallen in love with back in college, the man who had made her laugh through long nights of studying, who held her hand when life felt uncertain, who promised her forever. Perhaps, with time, he would find his own path. Perhaps he would see that love, like business, required effort and commitment. But even in those early days, a quiet tension was already beginning to grow. Amelia's first few weeks at Anderson Enterprises were overwhelming. The offices themselves felt like a monument to Edward Anderson's success. Marble floors, glass walls overlooking the city, and framed photos of completed projects that had transformed neighborhoods. She entered humbly, expecting to do little more than assist with marketing reports and presentations, but Edward had other ideas. He believed in testing people early, and Amelia, with her sharp mind and natural warmth, had impressed him more than she realized. Her first real challenge came during preparations for a major investor pitch. The company was planning to expand into a new construction division, one that would focus on large-scale residential developments. It was a bold move that required significant funding, and Edward wanted fresh ideas on how to position the project. Amelia, nervous but determined, poured herself into the work. She stayed late into the evenings, drafting proposals, researching investor trends, and crafting a presentation that blended vision with practicality. When the day of the pitch arrived, Edward insisted she join him at the table. Jasper sat there too, impeccably dressed but disinterested, his phone in hand more often than his notes. Amelia felt a tremor of nerves as the investors filed in, sharp-eyed men and women who had been courted by dozens of companies before. But when Edward gave her the floor, something shifted. She spoke with conviction, painting a picture of more than just profits. She described communities where families could thrive, where sustainable designs met modern living, where investors weren't just backing a project, but shaping a legacy. Her words were heartfelt yet strategic, connecting numbers with dreams. The room, once guarded, leaned forward. Questions followed, and Amelia answered each with calm confidence. By the time she finished, even the most skeptical investor seemed intrigued. The pitch was a success. Several investors committed to funding the project, and Edward made it clear that Amelia's ideas had been pivotal. After the meeting, he pulled her aside, his voice warm with approval. "You have a gift, Amelia. This company needs people like you." For Amelia, it was one of the proudest moments of her life. She felt she was truly contributing, not just as Jasper's wife, but as her own person, a woman whose skills mattered. But Jasper's reaction was far less celebratory. That evening, as they returned home, his tone was clipped. "Dad seems to think you're the savior of the company now," he said, loosening his tie. "Funny how quickly you've taken to all this." Amelia blinked at him, caught off guard. "Jasper, I was just trying to help. This is your family's legacy. I thought you'd be proud." "Of course I'm proud," he muttered, though his voice lacked conviction. He poured himself a drink and sank onto the couch, his phone lighting up with messages from friends. "I just don't see why you have to get so involved. It's supposed to be me working alongside Dad, not you." Amelia's heart tightened. She reached for his hand, but he pulled it back, distracted by his phone screen. For the first time, she felt a crack in the perfect image of their marriage, the sense that her ambition might threaten rather than strengthen their bond. Over the weeks that followed, her role in the company grew. Edward often sought her counsel, trusting her to bring a modern perspective the board desperately needed. Jasper, meanwhile, continued attending meetings in name only, offering opinions when convenient, but never the effort behind them. To the world, they looked like the perfect young couple poised to carry on the Anderson name. But beneath the surface, Amelia began to wonder, would her greatest success become the very thing that pushed her husband away? The Anderson boardroom had always been Edward's kingdom. From the head of the long mahogany table, he'd built his empire brick by brick, every decision measured, every risk calculated. Now, with Amelia's rising influence, The board was more energized than it had been in years. Investors were excited. Projects were expanding, and Edward felt a renewed sense of pride. But there was one thing gnawing at him: Jasper. It became more obvious with each passing month that his son had little appetite for leadership. At meetings, Jasper offered rehearsed comments or none at all. He skipped follow-ups, ignored reports, and often left Amelia to explain what he should have known. Edward tolerated it at first, hoping Jasper would grow into the role. But after Amelia successfully led a second investor presentation while Jasper lounged silently in the corner, Edward's patience thinned. One late evening, when the others had left the office, Edward motioned for Jasper to stay behind. Amelia started to rise too, but Edward gave her a kind smile. "Not you, Amelia, just Jasper." She hesitated before slipping out, her heart uneasy. Inside the empty boardroom, Edward folded his hands and studied his son. "Jasper, we need to talk." Jasper leaned back in his chair, bored. "If this is about Amelia, yes, she did a great job again. Everyone adores her. Congratulations to her." Edward's jaw tightened. "This isn't about Amelia. It's about you. She shows up. She works. She's earned the respect of this board. Meanwhile, you sit in these meetings like a guest instead of a leader." Jasper scoffed. "Dad, I am a leader. My name is on this company. That's all anyone needs to know. That's entitlement." "Talking," Edward snapped, his voice sharp enough to echo in the empty room. "This company wasn't built on names, Jasper. It was built on sweat. Every brick, every contract, every risk, I carried it on my back. I wanted you to inherit more than wealth. I wanted you to inherit pride." Jasper's face darkened. "You've always expected me to be just like you. Maybe I don't want that life." Edward leaned forward, his eyes piercing. "Then what do you want, son? Because from where I sit, it looks like you want the benefits without the responsibility. And let me tell you something. No empire survives on entitlement." The silence hung heavy. Jasper didn't answer. He only clenched his jaw, standing abruptly and storming out of the boardroom without a word. Amelia was waiting near the elevator, tension etched across her face. "Jasper, what happened?" He brushed past her. "Nothing, just Dad being Dad." But Edward emerged a moment later, his expression grave. "Don't let this discourage you, Amelia. You have a future here, a strong one. Don't let Jasper's stubbornness dim your fire." Her stomach twisted. She loved Jasper, but Edward's words stirred a quiet fear inside her. The more she grew in this company, the more she risked losing the man she had built her life with. That night at home, the silence between her and Jasper was deafening. He poured himself a drink, staring out the window. Amelia tried to bridge the gap. "Jasper, your father only wants the best for you. For us." He turned, his eyes cold. "No, Amelia, he wants you. He's already chosen his favorite, and it's not me." For the first time, Amelia saw a bitterness in Jasper that unsettled her. She reached for him, but he pulled away, retreating into the bedroom and shutting the door. Amelia stood in the quiet, her heart aching. She had dreamed of a marriage where love and ambition could coexist. But now she wondered if her success had become the very thing unraveling them. Without warning, Amelia received a call from Edward Anderson's secretary. "Mr. Anderson would like to see you in his office immediately." Her heart raced as she hurried down the hall, wondering if she had made a mistake on a report or presentation. When she entered, Edward was standing by the window, hands clasped behind his back. "Come with me," he said firmly, without offering further explanation. Confused but obedient, Amelia followed him out of the building into the waiting company car. They drove in silence, Edward's sharp eyes fixed out the window as the city slowly gave way to the edges of a suburban community. Finally, they stopped at a dusty lot where construction vehicles sat idle. The area looked modest, filled with small businesses, tidy rows of houses, and a grocery store that clearly served as the neighborhood hub. Edward turned to Amelia. "We're developing here. Investors want it bigger, flashier, condominiums, retail chains, the whole package. But that's not always the best answer. I want your opinion. How do we make this project profitable without destroying the character of this community?" Amelia blinked, caught off guard. "You want my opinion?" Edward nodded. "Yes, not a boardroom answer, a real one." Taking a deep breath, Amelia looked toward the small grocery store across the street. "Then I need to talk to the people who live here." She walked inside, notebook in hand. For the next 2 hours, she approached customers with warmth and genuine curiosity. She asked what they loved about their community, what they hoped for in new growth, and what they feared losing. At first, people were hesitant, suspicious of yet another developer swooping in. But Amelia's sincerity broke down walls. Her easy smile and listening ear made her approachable, and soon they spoke freely. A mother with 2 children said she longed for a safe park nearby. An elderly man wanted affordable housing so his grandchildren could stay in the neighborhood. A young couple hoped for small businesses that would bring jobs without erasing the family-owned shops they cherished. Amelia jotted down every detail, nodding thoughtfully, asking follow-up questions. What she didn't know was that Edward stood just outside, leaning against the company car, watching. He saw the way the community opened up to her, offering their thoughts without hostility or guardedness. Where most developers faced resistance, Amelia received trust. When she finally returned, her notebook was filled with notes and ideas. Edward's gaze softened as he took in her earnestness. "You have a gift," he said quietly. "People don't just talk to you, they believe you. Do you know how rare that is in this business?" Amelia flushed. "I just asked them what mattered." "To them, sometimes people just need to be heard." Edward gave a small nod, almost proud. "Your instincts are better than half the consultants I've hired in 30 years. And the truth is, you've already given me the answer. We can build here, but we'll do it with the community approval." For Amelia, the moment felt like a triumph, proof she could make a difference, that her voice mattered beyond the shadow of her husband's name. But in the quiet corners of her mind, she also felt the weight of what this meant. Edward's trust was growing stronger, and so was her place in the company. And if Jasper already felt overshadowed before, this was only the beginning. The following week, Amelia was summoned to Edward's office once again. She walked in expecting another meeting about investor reports, but Edward's expression was different this time, measured, decisive. "Amelia," he began, gesturing for her to sit, "I've been thinking about the future of this company. The community project you handled last week proved something to me. You don't just understand marketing, you understand people. That's why I'm moving you to lead the community revitalization division." Amelia's eyes widened. "Sir, I'm already working on the Anderson Towers campaign and the regional investor rollout. I don't want to leave anything unfinished." Edward shook his head firmly. "Not anymore. Those projects will be reassigned. This is bigger. This is a promotion, Amelia. You'll have more autonomy, a team reporting directly to you, and the authority to shape these projects the way you see fit." Her breath caught. A promotion in such a short time. It was more than she had dared imagine. Still, doubt lingered. "But are you sure? Shouldn't Jasper—" Edward's voice cut through. "Jasper isn't ready. You are. I need someone who can carry this company forward, not just in boardrooms but in communities. That person is you." Amelia left the office in a daze, her mind buzzing with both pride and worry. She wanted to tell Jasper immediately, wanted to see his eyes light up the way they used to when she shared good news. That evening, she greeted him at home with excitement. "Jasper, you won't believe this. Your father promoted me today. He wants me to lead the community revitalization division." For a moment, Jasper's expression faltered. just enough for Amelia to notice. Then, as though flipping a switch, he plastered on a smile. "Wow, Amelia, that's amazing. Congratulations, babe." Amelia studied him, unsure if his smile reached his eyes. "Really? You're happy about this?" "Of course," Jasper said quickly. "Why wouldn't I be? This is a big deal. We should celebrate." So they did. He took her to a sleek downtown restaurant, the kind they used to frequent during their college days when the world seemed full of promise. The waiter poured wine, candles flickered between them, and Amelia allowed herself to hope this was a fresh start. She spoke animatedly about the new role, about the community voices she'd heard, about Edward's trust in her, about the ideas already forming in her mind. "Jasper, I feel like I can really make a difference. Isn't that what this company should be about? Not just profits, but people." Jasper nodded, swirling his glass of wine, but his gaze was distant. "Yeah, absolutely. People." Amelia leaned forward, her hand brushing his. "This could be our future, Jasper. Together. Don't you see? We could build something lasting, something with meaning." He squeezed her hand lightly, the corners of his mouth curving upward. "Of course. You deserve this, Amelia. I'm proud of you." But as she smiled, soaking in his words, Jasper's mind told a different story. Deep down, resentment simmered. His father had once again chosen Amelia over him, giving her the role Jasper believed should be his by birthright. Every word of praise for her felt like another reminder of his own inadequacy. To Amelia, the dinner ended with hope, laughter, and clinking glasses. But to Jasper, it ended with a quiet vow. If his father couldn't see his worth, then he would find another way to prove it, even if it meant tearing down the very woman he claimed to love. The next 2 years were some of the busiest of Amelia's life. Her days began before sunrise and often ended long after the city lights flickered on. Leading the community revitalization project meant she was everywhere, at construction sites, wearing a hard hat and boots, in conference rooms refining budgets, and in town halls listening to residents' concerns. Amelia believed that revitalization wasn't just about bricks and mortar, but about rebuilding trust. She made it a point to walk the neighborhoods regularly, checking in with small business owners and homeowners alike. She asked questions, listened, and made adjustments to plans when needed. Her efforts gave the community a voice in the project, something they had rarely experienced with large-scale development. Investors were pleased with the returns, and the community felt included in the company's vision. For the first time in years, Anderson Enterprises had both profit and goodwill on its side. But while Amelia thrived, Jasper simmered. At first, he told himself he was proud of her, that he enjoyed the freedom of not being tied down to the company the way his father always wanted. But with every passing month, the praise heaped upon Amelia only reminded him of his own shortcomings. He couldn't ignore how easily his father leaned on her, how board members looked to her instead of him, how even the community seemed to view her as the face of Anderson Enterprises. What stung the most was the bond between Amelia and Edward. He often found them in deep conversation, exchanging ideas as though they were equals. Edward had never spoken to Jasper that way. To Jasper, it felt like his father had replaced him, not just as an heir to the company, but as a partner worth listening to. One evening, Amelia came home exhausted but glowing with pride after the community park ribbon cutting. "Jasper, you should have seen it. The kids running into the playground, the parents thanking us. It felt like everything we worked for mattered." Jasper forced a smile, swirling his drink. "That's great, Amelia. Sounds like Dad's golden girl is making him proud." The words cut, though Amelia tried to brush them off. She told herself Jasper was just tired, that he'd come around. But deep down, she couldn't ignore the shadow in his voice. For Edward, Amelia had become indispensable. For Jasper, she had become a reminder of everything he wasn't, and as the company grew stronger under Amelia's influence, so too did the silent storm building inside her husband. Edward Anderson had always been a man of foresight. For months, he had been quietly preparing for the inevitable, stepping back from the company he had built brick by brick. Age had slowed him, and though his mind remained sharp, he knew it was time to ensure Anderson Enterprises was placed in steady hands. Jasper father had already made his choice. He had watched Amelia for 2 years, observed her tireless work, her connection with communities, her respect from investors, and her ability to steady the company in ways no one else had. Jasper, despite every opportunity, had shown no growth, no drive. Edward wanted to pass the torch to family, but it was Amelia's determination, not Jasper's entitlement, that convinced him she was the future. The announcement came at a quarterly board meeting. Amelia had just finished an extensive presentation outlining the next phase of the revitalization project. She spoke with clarity and conviction, detailing not just the financial gains, but the cultural impact of rebuilding communities without stripping them of identity. The boardroom, filled with seasoned men and women, nodded in agreement. Investors smiled. Even skeptics couldn't deny her vision. As Amelia concluded, Edward rose from his seat at the head of the table. The room quieted. Instantly, his voice carried weight, calm but resolute. "Ladies and gentlemen, today I am making a formal announcement. After decades of leading Anderson Enterprises, I will be stepping back from daily operations. This company has been my life's work, but it is time to prepare for the next chapter." Murmurs rippled across the room. Eyes shifted toward Jasper, who sat straighter, a faint smile tugging at his lips. He was ready to accept the crown he believed was rightfully his. Edward's next words shattered that illusion. Effective immediately, Amelia Anderson will serve as acting CEO. She has proven herself through hard work, vision, and determination. Amelia has the respect of this board, the trust of our investors, and the heart of the communities we serve. I could not think of a better person to lead us forward. The silence was deafening. Then the reactions split. Several board members nodded knowingly, unsurprised. They had seen Amelia's steady hand and Edward's quiet favoritism. Others, however, raised eyebrows, clearly expecting Jasper's name. A hushed debate followed, but when it came time to vote, the result was unanimous. Every hand went up in support of Amelia. She sat frozen for a moment, overwhelmed. "Mr. Anderson, Edward, I don't know what to say." Edward smiled warmly. "Say yes, Amelia. Accept what you've already earned." Her throat tightened with emotion, but she managed a nod. "Then yes, I will do my best to lead this company with the same integrity you built it on." The room broke into applause. The sound was thunderous, echoing off the boardroom walls. Edward's eyes glistened with pride, but at the far end of the table, Jasper sat rigid, his jaw clenched, his fists hidden beneath the polished wood. Outwardly, he forced a tight smile, even clapped along with the others. Inwardly, his anger boiled. This was supposed to be his moment, his inheritance, his legacy. Yet once again Amelia had been chosen over him by his own father in front of the entire board. That evening, he said nothing. He kissed Amelia's cheek, congratulated her, and even raised a toast at dinner. But deep inside, resentment festered like a flame starving for air. He would not explode, not yet. He would wait, he would watch, and he would plan. And Amelia, glowing with pride and gratitude, did not see the storm that had already begun to form in her husband's heart. At first, Amelia told herself that Jasper simply needed time to adjust, time to accept her new role, time to rediscover his own sense of purpose. But as the weeks stretched into months, the distance between them only widened. She noticed it in small ways at first. He no longer lingered at the breakfast table. Instead, he scrolled through his phone, answering curtly when she tried to start a conversation. At night, when she came home exhausted from the office, Jasper would already be in bed, turned toward the wall, pretending to be asleep. One evening, Amelia finally pressed him. She placed a hand on his arm and asked softly, "Jasper, are we okay? You've been so distant. I feel like we don't talk anymore." He gave a quick, dismissive laugh. "Of course we're okay. Everything's fine, Amelia. Our marriage is strong. There's nothing to worry about." But his tone was too light, too practiced, and his eyes never met hers. She wanted to believe him, but in her heart, she knew the words were meant to silence, not reassure. The distance was most glaring at social and company events. Amelia, now acting CEO, was constantly in the spotlight. She moved through rooms filled with investors, community leaders, and press, always aware of the cameras flashing, the voices whispering about her remarkable rise. She wanted Jasper at her side, her partner in all of this, but too often he slipped away the moment they arrived. At a charity gala one evening, Amelia found herself speaking with a senator about the revitalization project. When she turned to introduce Jasper, she discovered him across the room, drink in hand, leaning in far too close to a laughing blonde in a glittering gown. His smile was broad, charming, the smile she once believed was hers alone. Her chest tightened, but she kept her composure, forcing a polite laugh at the senator's joke. It wasn't the first time. At nearly every event, Jasper seemed to vanish into clusters of women, offering them the attention he withheld from his wife. Later that night, as they drove home, Amelia confronted him. "You left me standing alone again, Jasper. You didn't even try to be with me tonight." Jasper shrugged, loosening his tie. "You were busy being the star of the evening. Everyone wanted your attention. I didn't want to get in the way." "You weren't in the way," Amelia said, her voice breaking. "You're my husband. I need you by my side." He glanced out the window, his jaw tight. "You don't need me, Amelia. You have my father. You have the board. You have the whole city applauding you. What difference does it make if I stand next to you or not?" Amelia's throat closed with hurt. She wanted to shout, to beg him to understand that none of it mattered without him. But the words stuck, and silence filled the car. From the outside, they still looked like the perfect couple, the brilliant CEO and her handsome husband, smiling for photos, shaking hands with dignitaries. But behind closed doors, their marriage had become a hollow echo of what it once was. Amelia still clung to hope, whispering to herself that they could find their way back. Connie Anderson had watched quietly for years, letting Edward take the hard role of shaping their son while she offered comfort. She had been the soft place Jasper fell when his father's expectations weighed too heavily, the one who excused his laziness as finding himself, and soothed his tantrums when life didn't bend to his will. But at the gala, as she saw him leaning far too close to a young woman, laughter bubbling from his lips, while Amelia stood across the room alone, something inside her broke. The next morning, she summoned Jasper to her home. He arrived unsuspecting, expecting perhaps coffee and light chatter, not the storm waiting for him in the living room. "Mother?" he asked, confused as she stood with her arms crossed, eyes blazing. "Sit down, Jasper." Her voice was sharper than he'd ever heard. He frowned, sinking into the armchair. "What's this about? What's this about?" she snapped. "I'll tell you what it's about. I watched you last night making a fool of yourself, leaning over some young woman while your wife stood alone. Do you think no one notices? Do you think I don't see the man you've become?" Jasper blinked, stunned. His mother had never spoken to him like this. "Mother, you don't—" She cut him off, her voice trembling with both anger and regret. "It's my fault. I coddled you. While your father worked 16-hour days building this company from nothing, I gave you every comfort, every excuse. I told myself you deserved more than we had growing up, but what did I raise? A brat, A sorrowful man who resents his wife for doing what he should have been doing all along. Father never gave me a chance. Jasper shot back, defensive. Connie stepped closer, her eyes fierce. He gave you every chance, Jasper. He gave you the best schools. He gave you a seat on the board. He gave you a name built from blood and sweat. And instead of stepping up, you stood on the sidelines, sulking, blaming everyone but yourself. Your father earned this empire, and you act as though it should have been handed to you like a toy. Jasper shifted uncomfortably, his jaw tight. Why are you saying this to me? You've never— Because, she snapped, her voice breaking, you are about to destroy a good woman's heart. Amelia is the best thing that ever happened to you, and you are too blinded by jealousy to see it. That woman works harder than anyone, carrying this company on her shoulders, while you chase shadows and smile at other women like some spoiled boy. Your problem isn't with her, it isn't even with your father, it's with yourself. You think you're owed something you never earned. Silence filled the room. Jasper looked at her as though she were a stranger. The raw anger in her voice rattled him more than his father's lectures ever had. Connie stepped forward, lowering her tone but not her resolve. Now this is what's going to happen. You are going to apologize to your wife. Truly apologize. You're going to sit down with her and have a real conversation about your marriage and what she needs from you. And when it comes to the company, you will ask her where she wants you positioned, not the other way around. Jasper swallowed, his voice barely above a whisper. And if I don't, her gaze hardened, then you will lose her. And when you do, don't come to me expecting comfort. I won't coddle you anymore. He sat there stunned, shame pressing heavy on his chest. Mom, I don't even know how I got here. I don't know if I can fix this. Connie softened just enough to take his hands. Start small. Go to her office. Bring her flowers. Wear the pitiful look I know you're good at, but mean it this time. Show her you want to fight for her, for your marriage. Everything else will come later. Jasper's eyes stung. For the first time in years he felt like a boy again, not the pampered son, but a child caught in the truth. He leaned forward and kissed his mother's cheek. Yes, Mom. Connie exhaled, watching him leave. Whether he would follow through or fall back into old habits she didn't know. But at least for once, she had said what needed to be said. Amelia was buried in paperwork when her office door opened. She looked up, startled, to see Jasper standing there. He held a bouquet of fresh flowers in his hands, roses, her favorite. For a moment she just stared, her expression caught between surprise and caution. Jasper, she said slowly, her voice guarded. What are you doing here? He stepped inside, placing the flowers on her desk. These are for you. She picked them up carefully, as though they might shatter. What's this for? She asked, her tone indifferent. For putting up with a fool, he admitted, his voice quiet. My behavior. It wasn't about you, Amelia. It was me, my pride, my resentment, my past hurt with my father. I know if I don't change who I am as a man, I'm going to lose you. And I can't let that happen. Despite everything, I need you to know I'm still in love with you. I'll do whatever it takes to restore our marriage. Amelia didn't rise from her chair. Her eyes studied him, searching for sincerity, but the wounds ran deep. For starters, she said firmly, you need counseling. You need to work out why you resent your father so much, why his choices have become your excuse to sabotage everything good in your life. Jasper shifted uncomfortably, his hands clenching at his sides. And what about us? He asked, his voice tinged with desperation. She exhaled sharply. That will take time. You embarrassed me, Jasper. At the last social event, while I was speaking with donors, you were across the room, laughing too closely with those women, soaking up their attention. Jasper winced, guilt flickering across his face. I know. I crossed a line. I'm sorry. Her voice rose slightly, the hurt finally spilling out. Do you know one of the guests asked me if I was single, because he noticed I'd been alone all night. Alone, Jasper. I lied for you. I told him my husband was busy working the room, networking, when really you were chasing attention I shouldn't have to compete for." Her eyes glistened with unshed tears, and Jasper felt the weight of his actions like a stone pressing on his chest. He stepped forward instinctively, reaching for her hand, but Amelia pulled back, shaking her head, the rejection cutting him deeper than words. "Amelia," he said hoarsely, "I promise you, I'll be the man you desire, the man you're proud of. Just give me the next 6 months to prove it." She looked at him for a long moment, the silence thick with everything unspoken. Then she shook her head slowly, her voice flat. "We'll see, Jasper. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't reconciliation. It was a sliver of possibility, thin as glass, fragile as the hope still beating faintly inside her heart. Jasper stood there, staring at the woman he had nearly lost. He knew words wouldn't save him this time. Only actions, steady, consistent, painful actions, could rebuild what he had broken. And for the first time, he realized he had no choice but to fight for her. Amelia turned back to her desk, her hands brushing over the bouquet of roses. They were beautiful, yes, but she knew flowers wilted quickly. What mattered was whether Jasper's promises would last. And for now, all she could do was wait and see. The next morning, Jasper did something he hadn't done in years. He woke before Amelia. He brewed fresh coffee, made scrambled eggs, and even set the table with fruit and toast. When Amelia emerged, hair still damp from her shower, she paused, in surprise at the sight of him in the kitchen. "Breakfast?" she asked warily. Jasper offered a sheepish smile. "I thought we could start the day together. And maybe ride to work side by side?" She hesitated, then nodded, taking a seat. The gesture was small, but it was the first crack of light in what had been weeks of darkness. At headquarters, Jasper tried something new. He got involved. Instead of hiding behind his title or slipping out of meetings, he rolled up his sleeves and joined the rehab division, which was struggling with the Lakeview project. The neighborhood had been devastated by storms the previous year, leaving homes gutted and families displaced. Investors had lost interest when the city refused to rezone the area for business, calling it a financial dead end. But to Jasper's surprise, something about the project tugged at him. The homeowners weren't nameless faces on reports. They were families, tired, hopeful, desperate for a chance to rebuild. Many couldn't afford the rising costs of reconstruction. For once, Jasper set aside entitlement and asked himself what he could actually do. He began coordinating with contractors, reviewing progress reports, and seeking grants the company had previously overlooked. At lunch, he approached Amelia's office, tentative. "I know you're busy, but want to grab a bite with me?" She looked up, eyebrows raised. "Lunch? With you?" He chuckled nervously. "That's the idea." It was awkward at first. They sat across from each other in the company cafe, their conversation halting, but Jasper filled the silence with something unexpected. "I've been working on Lakeview," he said, surprising even himself. "The rehab project. You know, the homes destroyed in last year's storms." Amelia stilled, her fork halfway to her mouth. "Lakeview? I thought the city wouldn't approve rezoning." "They won't," Jasper admitted, "but that's the point. I'm not trying to rezone. I'm helping the homeowners rebuild as residential. They don't want businesses replacing their neighborhood. They just want their homes back. And most of them can't afford it. I've been trying to find ways to make it work. Grants, donations, cost cuts. It's not easy, but," he shrugged, glancing down, "it feels worth doing." Amelia studied him carefully. She'd grown used to Jasper drifting in and out of the company, never planting his feet in the work. But the way he spoke now, earnest, almost passionate, was different. "You're helping the homeowners directly?" she asked softly. "Yeah," Jasper said. "I figured it was time I actually did something. For once. For the first time in a long while. Amelia's expression softened. She didn't smile, not yet, but her guarded eyes flickered with something close to hope. Their lunch ended quietly, but when Jasper walked her back to her office, she found herself thinking about him differently. Maybe his promises weren't just words this time. Maybe, just maybe, he was beginning to understand what it meant to build something real. Jasper knew he had a long road ahead. But as he watched Amelia return to her office, bouquet still sitting on her desk from the day before, he realized this was only the beginning of proving he could be the man she deserved. Jasper threw himself into the Lakeview project with an energy that surprised everyone, especially himself. For the first time in years, he arrived at the office early, sleeves rolled up, ready to work. He walked through the half-finished homes, listened to contractors vent about budget shortfalls, and spent long evenings reviewing paperwork he once would have ignored. It wasn't glamorous work. There were setbacks, permits delayed, costs rising, investors uninterested, but Jasper kept pushing. Slowly, families began to notice. Homeowners who had nearly given up hope saw progress. Frames going up, roofs patched, yards cleared of storm wreckage. One evening, an elderly couple clasped Jasper's hands, tears in their eyes. "We thought we'd never see our home again. Thank you for not giving up on us." The words struck him harder than he expected. For once, he wasn't being praised for his name, his title, or his family. He was being thanked for showing up. Edward Anderson noticed too. At a board meeting, he listened as Jasper gave a clear, detailed update on Lakeview. It wasn't polished like Amelia's presentations, but it was real. Edward leaned back in his chair, studying his son. For the first time in years, pride flickered in his eyes. He didn't say much, Edward never did, but his approving nod meant more to Jasper than a dozen speeches. At home, Jasper tried to mirror the same consistency. He continued making breakfast, even if Amelia still approached it cautiously. He asked to ride to work together, even if sometimes she declined. When she did agree, the drives were quiet, but at least they were shared. The hardest part was regaining her trust in their marriage. Amelia wasn't easily swayed by flowers or grand apologies anymore. She wanted proof. One evening, she set her fork down at dinner and looked him squarely in the eye. "Jasper, I need to know if this is real," she said softly. "Not just another promise. I've seen you start things before and lose interest the moment it got hard. If you're serious about us, about this company, you need to keep showing up." Jasper nodded, swallowing hard. "I know, and I don't blame you for doubting me. But this time is different. I've been learning, Amelia. Lakeview isn't about money or appearances. It's about people counting on me, and I don't want to let them down, or you." Her gaze softened, though it was still wary. "Then don't. Because I can't go through another season of excuses and humiliation. You embarrassed me, Jasper. You hurt me. It's going to take more than 6 months to heal that." "I understand," he said quietly, "but I'll give you however long it takes." The weeks that followed tested him. When Amelia declined lunch because of back-to-back meetings, Jasper didn't sulk. He brought her food anyway, leaving it on her desk with a note. When the Lakeview project hit a snag with funding, he stayed late searching for solutions instead of disappearing to a bar. And when social invitations rolled in, Jasper turned them down, honoring his mother's ultimatum. Instead, he planned small dinner dates with Amelia, evenings that felt tentative but genuine, as though they were relearning how to be together. One night, as they walked home from a quiet dinner, Amelia slipped her hand into his. It was hesitant, almost fragile, but it was there. Jasper glanced down, surprised, and she met his eyes. "Don't make me regret giving you another chance," she whispered. He squeezed her hand gently. "I won't." For the first time in a long time, Amelia believed him, just a little, and for the first time in his life, Jasper believed in himself. For weeks, Jasper kept his promise to Amelia. Her condition weighed heavily on him. Counseling. He had resisted the idea at first. Counseling felt like an admission of weakness, something he had been raised to avoid. But Amelia's words echoed in his mind. For starters, you need counseling. Until you deal with why you resent your father, nothing else will change. The sessions were stiff, filled with long silences and awkward half-answers, but gradually Jasper began to peel back layers he had never confronted. He admitted his jealousy of Amelia's connection with Edward. He confessed how belittled he felt when Edward never praised him, only corrected him. But the deepest wound came from childhood, watching other boys with fathers who showed up for games, school plays and family dinners, while his father was always somewhere else chasing contracts and meetings. I hated him, Jasper admitted one afternoon, his voice cracking, not for being tough, not for pushing me, but because he wasn't there. He missed birthdays, he missed graduations. It felt like the company was his real child and I was just an obligation. The counselor nodded, guiding him through the realization his resentment wasn't just about business. It was about a boy who had wanted his father's presence more than his approval. Connie noticed the shift in Jasper, and she pushed Edward to join him. At first, Edward resisted. He was a man who had built an empire with his hands, who had never admitted weakness in boardrooms or at home, but Connie was relentless. You worked 16-hour days for decades, Edward, and in doing so you forgot to father your son. You're not too old to fix that. Reluctantly, Edward agreed. The first joint session was tense. Jasper sat stiffly, arms crossed, while Edward's jaw was set in stone. But when the counselor asked Edward what he remembered of Jasper's childhood, the older man faltered. I remember working, Edward admitted gruffly. I remember rushing from site to site, trying to keep the company alive. I thought, if I provided enough, if I built something lasting, it would be enough for my family. But maybe I was wrong. Jasper's anger spilled out. You weren't just wrong, you were gone. Every award, every game, every time I looked into the crowd, hoping you'd be there, you weren't. You talk about legacy and responsibility, but what about me? Didn't I deserve your time? Your care? Edward flinched at the rawness of his son's words. For once, he didn't deflect. You're right, I failed you there. I didn't know how to balance it. My own father worked me to the bone and never said a kind word. I thought providing was enough. I see now it wasn't. The room grew still. For the first time, Edward looked at his son, not as a disappointment, but as a man wounded by his absence. And Jasper, for the first time, saw not just the towering figure of his father, but a flawed man who had never learned how to love openly. The sessions continued, slowly softening the walls between them. They began to speak more honestly, sometimes clashing, but sometimes miraculously agreeing. On one occasion, Edward admitted, "You're not me, Jasper, and you don't need to be, but you do need to stand for something." Jasper swallowed, nodding. I think I finally understand that. Amelia noticed the difference almost immediately. Jasper spoke less bitterly of his father and more openly about his own failings. And when Edward visited the Lakeview site alongside Jasper for the first time, she saw something she had never expected, a father and son walking side by side, not as rivals, but as two men trying at last to bridge the gap of years lost. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't healed overnight, but it was a beginning. And for Jasper, that beginning meant everything. True to his word, Jasper spent the next 6 months rebuilding what he had nearly destroyed. It wasn't grand speeches or dramatic gestures that carried weight this time. It was consistency. Every morning he was up before Amelia, making coffee and breakfast. He didn't just set the table, he sat with her, asking about her day, listening instead of drifting off behind his phone. In the evenings, they made a point to eat dinner together, even when the hours were late. Sometimes the meals were takeout. After long days, sometimes they were simple home-cooked suppers, but the ritual mattered more than the menu. Twice a month, Jasper whisked Amelia away on weekend trips. They weren't lavish getaways to Europe or expensive resorts. They were thoughtful escapes, a quiet cabin by the lake, a bed and breakfast in the countryside, a seaside town where they strolled hand in hand through small shops. The focus wasn't on impressing her, it was on being with her. Slowly, Amelia began to notice his attention was no longer elsewhere, it was firmly on her. During this time, Connie and Edward handled the social events and galas that once drained Amelia. For the first time since becoming acting CEO, she attended only what was absolutely necessary. Jasper insisted she deserved rest as much as celebration, and he guarded their private time fiercely. It was as if the spotlight no longer tempted him. Instead, he found joy in the quiet moments they shared away from cameras and crowds. Then, one evening, Jasper surprised her. He planned a small gathering at his parents' home, inviting only close friends and family. Amelia entered expecting another formal dinner, but instead she was met with warm lights, soft music, and the intimate embrace of loved ones. The evening wasn't about business, investments, or networking. It was about her. Jasper raised a glass and stood in front of the room, his eyes fixed on Amelia. "I've spent much of my life taking things for granted," he began, his voice steady but emotional. "I thought being born into privilege meant I didn't have to prove myself. And in that selfishness, I failed at the one role that mattered most, being a good husband to Amelia." Amelia felt her throat tighten, her eyes shimmering as everyone grew silent. "For too long," Jasper continued, "I let jealousy and resentment blind me. I envied the bond Amelia had with my father when the truth was she earned it. Through hard work, determination, and vision, she gave more to this company and to me than I ever did. I failed to see that. I failed her." His gaze never wavered. "From hers. Tonight, I want to do something I should have done long ago. I want to celebrate the extraordinary woman I married, the woman who built not only this company's future, but also the pieces of my own broken heart. Amelia, I am sorry for failing as your partner, for embarrassing you, for not protecting the vows I made when I promised to love you forever. I can't erase the past, but I can promise you this. Every day forward, I will spend proving I'm the man worthy of standing beside you." The room was quiet, except for the sound of Amelia's breath. She felt every eye turned to her, but in that moment it was only Jasper she saw, her husband, vulnerable, changed, and unafraid to own his failings. Tears slipped down her cheeks. She didn't rush into forgiveness. She knew healing was a process, not a performance. But for the first time in years, her heart stirred with something she had thought she'd lost: hope. She raised her glass toward him, her lips trembling into the smallest of smiles. "Then let's see what the next chapter holds." The gathering erupted in applause, but Amelia and Jasper only looked at each other. For once, no bitterness lingered, no distance separated them. Just two people, scarred but still standing, daring to believe love could be rebuilt. Later that night, after the guests had left and the house was quiet, Amelia and Jasper curled up together on the sofa in their apartment. The glow of the city lights filtered through the windows, softening the edges of the long, emotional evening. Amelia leaned her head against his shoulder, the warmth of his presence no longer feeling foreign, but familiar again, like it used to. For a while, they sat in silence, each lost in thought. Then Amelia's voice broke through the stillness, gentle but certain. "Jasper," she began, her fingers tracing idle circles on his hand, "I need to tell you something I've never said out loud." He turned to her, searching her face. "What is it?" She exhaled slowly. "I never wanted the position of CEO. I love marketing. That's where my heart has always been. My plans for us, back when we were in college, when I imagined our life together, were simple. I thought you would be the CEO and I'd be the one helping push your vision. And somewhere along the way, we'd build a family, have a couple of children, and just live. Her words landed heavy, raw with honesty. Jasper felt a burn creep up his cheeks. He swallowed hard, emotions knotting his throat. Children, he repeated softly, as though tasting the word for the first time. His voice grew steadier, warm with something new. That sounds nice. But Amelia, you are the CEO. You've earned that, and you can still have children. We can still have dreams together, even with the title you've acquired. Amelia tilted her head, studying him, and for the first time in years his words carried no envy, no bitterness, only sincerity. Slowly, her lips curved into a smile. "Good," she whispered, her eyes bright. "Because I'm ready for us to begin that journey. Besides," she chuckled, "I'm tired of your mother throwing hints every time we visit. You'd think she had a calendar already marked with potential due dates." Jasper laughed. The sound deep and unrestrained, echoing through their home. "That sounds like her. I swear she's been slipping baby magazines onto the coffee table just to get us talking." Amelia laughed with him, the sound light and healing. For once, their laughter wasn't forced or polite. It was shared, genuine, born out of relief and rediscovery. He tightened his arm around her shoulders, pulling her close. "Then let's begin, Amelia. Not because of my parents, not because of the company, but because it's what we want. A future, a family, a life we build together." Her heart swelled. For so long she had carried the weight of the company, of their marriage, of proving herself. Now, sitting in his arms, she felt lighter. For the first time, she could picture a future that wasn't defined by boardrooms and titles, but by love, laughter, and the quiet moments that made life worth living. She leaned in and kissed him softly, lingering just long enough to seal the promise between them. "Then here's to new dreams," she murmured against his lips. "And to us," Jasper replied, his forehead resting against hers. For the first time in years, they weren't looking backward at what had broken, but forward, toward what they could build. Hope you enjoyed this story by Green Tea Tales. Help support our channel with comments, and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you.